Hey everyone, welcome to the Paid Forward Society, the podcast where we explore the many facets of leadership as we talk to inspiring managers, entrepreneurs, coaches, veterans, and athletes who empower their teams and deliver results. Together, we discover the keys to success through empathy, purpose, and care. I'm your host, Romain Jourdan, and today I have the privilege to welcome Dominic Tremblay with us. Hey Dominic, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Dominic. So, Dominic, you are the CEO or co-founder of Tux Creative House, which is an advertising company. So it is based in Canada, right, in Montreal, but you have also extended your operation to the US and you are based in LA.
Exactly. In LA and Montreal, the two places where we actually are physically there.
Nice.
Yeah. Most of our business is in the US, but a lot of the production is made in Montreal.
All right. So can you tell us more about your company?
Sure. So I guess the idea is, to really mix a bunch of really strong, talented people in creative services and have them deliver awesome work. So we're fully integrated in creative services, about 100 or 80 something people. And across different expertise like strategy, copywriting, advertising, branding, production, media, and web. So pretty, I guess, 360, we should say now. I guess the pleasure that we have now is we work on many projects now, sometimes on the branding side, sometimes on the campaign side. The idea is to get all these amazing people to work well together because, talent is amazing, but sometimes they get very special and lonely in one way. Yeah. So it's nice when you can integrate different talented people together and have them work together. That's the magic, I find.
Perfect. All right. Sounds good. So thank you for introducing your company. I think, so we got introduced by Clara. She's the community manager at French Founder. So as a French-speaking community, we get to meet and to be connected through this club. And what you told me about you, and specifically about what you have created with your partner, is a very inclusive environment, and also very welcoming environment. And you, what Clara told me about your activities, that you try to change the way leadership is traditionally done. So that was why I was specifically excited to talk with you and understand what you have done, what you are working on at the moment. So if that's okay with you, I'd like to discuss your journey into leadership, how you are, fostering teams' creativity, because this is a very creative work that you are doing, and I'm sure that there are many things we can learn from your experience that could be applied to other businesses like in my team. How could I leverage some of your ideas? I know that you are a B Corp company, so I'd like to understand what it means and why is that important. We had a discussion with Remy a couple of weeks back, and he explained also how he implemented that. So I'd like to understand that. And obviously, I think a big theme is to talk about diversity and inclusion. You are very open about your activity to include LGBT plus, communities and in your enterprise. So I think that would be super important to discuss about that. And finally, you made some recent announcements about the 4-day weeks. So I'd like to understand how it works, specifically in the US, because and how you maintain, the ability to deliver results to your company, to your customers, and whilst empowering people to have more time for them. Is that okay?
Yeah,
the agenda?
It's a good agenda. I like it.
All
I like every part of it. Actually, is great. I think it's interesting. Well, first, my personal background into this, my journey. I was coming from a French-speaking background in Quebec, go to Toronto to study to understand English and kind of open myself to the world. And then after that, I was lucky enough to go and work in Amsterdam for the ING group for several years,
Yeah.
where I
Okay.
was traveling the world and working in New York and Mexico and Budapest and in Amsterdam, a bunch of different places, meeting different cultures. And this was like a precious time where um, you learn all about the concept of management and business and MBA, and then you are sent out to the world. And there's two types of MBAs. MBAs that are going to MBA school when they have very little experience,
Mm-hmm.
which I find are more like the academic
Yeah.
MBAs. And then you have the people that decide to do an MBA when they're in the 30s, 40s, or after 10, 15 years of experience in the business, where it's a bit more applied because they have more experience to relate to. I was on the younger side. So I left with like an MBA full of notes and and concepts, and then made it to the real world. And I think my first experience being in 5 years in international roles was really much about the diversity of cultures and ideas and thinking. And I was very drawn to that human aspect of business, of getting people to work together towards ideas, common goals, the process, and all these things. So I was always fascinated by that part. And then after that journey that was in the banking mode, I ended up decided to move to something that was more creative. I've always
Mm-hmm.
felt like I wasn't a creative person. I'm not an artist, but I love artistic capabilities. I love the talent, and I'm attracted to it because I guess I'm puzzled by it. Therefore, I moved to the cosmetic world, and I worked for L'Oreal for 10 years, where I basically learned a lot about leadership there because there was a lot of training programs, and I did the 10 years from like a marketing coordinator ground up, starting in the business, and I climbed my way all the way up to general manager for a couple of big brands there. And then so throughout that journey, at the end I was managing maybe 100 people. So it was great because this is obviously a big company with lots of training programs and experience, and you can draw experiences with other manager across the world, and there's a big community. So I learned a lot there from leadership
Mm-hmm.
techniques and managing people. And then decided to leave to start my own thing because, I guess at one point I wanted to really have autonomy, independence on making decisions. And these big corporations can become very political after a while. So the decision was to do that. And I met my partner at that time, Ludwig. And then we decided to fund to build this company, creative company, which was kind of marrying both things: the business side of it that I like, the artistic side that Ludwig is an artist. So it was perfect. And then we were like, you know what? We believe in culture, we believe in people, we really believe in the human ass side of the business that I thought in those big organizations was sometimes let go a bit more. You become in these big companies, and they're all like, when you get into like on the stock market and you're being driven by numbers, and it's very hard to stay sane, I would say, and not be driven by the P&L.
Mm-hmm.
So after many years of P&L driven, it was like I wanted the culture was a bit different, something a bit more sustainable. Um, and so we really wanted to do that differently, and that's why I think we got involved in B Corp and a bunch of different things in sustainability that really kind of set us apart and got us on this journey, which is never finished. It's a continuously progressive way of looking at things, but it all makes sense there. And I'm lucky because what we do is creative work, and creative work is by definition, thinking of ideas, new things, trying
New
out,
ways.
making mistakes and starting over again. And it's not as linear as counting beans. So it's not like I'm spending 2 hours. I don't know, what kind of output we'll get. Maybe it's going to be a brilliant idea. Maybe nothing is going to come out of it. It's not as, and I always make a referral. I think I always compare the two with gardening. It's almost like, you can, if you want to grow some vegetables or flowers, you can't just pull the flowers out. They're not going to grow faster. You just need to make sure they have proper soil, proper moisture, proper sun. So it's all about the environment, and then it will flourish. And creativity is the same way. You need to make sure that the talent is motivated, it's stimulated, they're excited, they're rested, they're empowered, and and then the objectives are clear and the mandate and all these things, when everything is in place, then the great ideas kind of come up, so
Yeah,
that's how I see it sometimes in my head. It
that's
makes it
good.
easier.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's very good. Good.
And then the whole B Corp and talent and be more, I guess, inclusive and all these things make sense, because this is how humans behave in the best possible way. Because you need different opinions on something, and I'm always surprised, because I guess I'm a business person, so I'm more on the left brain, I would say, probably, and my partner is complete artistic, so he's real on the right. So sometimes we look at something and we see two different things,
Yeah.
and it strikes me sometimes. There's a situation happening, and he's going to be like, I'm going to ask him, what does he think of it? And he's going to say something, and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even think about that. And I mean, we do the same business. We've been working together for many years. We're married now. We have kids. Like, we should see it similarly, but no, completely different. So that amazes me. So if you multiply this by tens of people, you just get better ideas and better results and better, thinking overall.
Yeah, it's very good. All right. So if that's okay with you, I'd like to go back to your first experiences,
Mm-hmm.
because maybe they would help to understand how you get there. And specifically, you work in, I would say, constrained environments like banking, and then a big brand like L'Oreal. I think those are very interesting. But I think yeah, I'm curious to understand how you ended up in the leadership position, and maybe if you have a couple of stories about some of the mistakes you did along the way, and what you learned. I think that could be valuable.
I have. I think the question is, what can I say? What are these things I can tell? But no, for sure. I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and I think one thing that I enjoyed about L'Oreal was a company that recruited people that were intrapreneur. It's called, like, entrepreneur within an organization. I don't even know if this concept actually makes sense at the end, but
Entrepreneur.
yeah, exactly. So I think it's a great human resources policy, but I don't know if it actually works over time. But for a certain period of time, it works, because it is the reality that, within these companies, if you show success, they give you lots of responsibilities really fast and very early in your career, which is, kind of a work hard, play hard kind of culture, and sink or swim and all that kinds of, like, achiever, I would say, kind of culture, which fitted with me, because that's the way I kind of play. I like to, like, do things and learn by doing.
Mm-hmm.
So this was an environment that was actually very useful for it. But I did lots of mistakes on the way, like, like completely going too risky on budgets, missing kind of, building plans that are unrealistic because you assume things so fast. Like, all these things, make sense and have a huge impact. But at the end of the day, I think that you still need to get people to work together, regardless of what you do, with the sport and companies. And this is where you get to work with many people on lots of different settings. So you get to do and to try it and learn and get better really fast. I think this is the thing that I enjoyed the most. So even though I had a bad human resources experience where I was, giving the wrong coaching style to a person, so the person doesn't really do as we're supposed to, and then you become, or not able to handle a difficult performance review or situation with the employee. That happens all the time, because nobody's perfect and it's human. So sometimes you just don't have, you're not on the right mindset. So all these things are okay, but I think that it's almost like you need to do all these things to build and to get better as a manager, because the managing humans is different every day. And every Monday there's a new story. And every 3 months there's a drama. And the more people you have, the more drama you have. And eventually you have people, screaming and fighting and hating and loving and having all kinds of crazy stories, because this is how humans behave in the social environment. So the more people you have, the more people you add, just more crazier these stories become. But as you age in this and as you experience it, it's less surprising, and you end up managing it as expecting it. Like, oh my god, it's been like a couple of weeks now, and there's been no drama. That's
Oh, that
strange. Something is
happened.
gonna come up. I'm expecting, and boom, you know what? A week later, boom, boom, 2 days in a row, like major drama happening, right? But that's
Yeah.
the reality. So I think it just becomes, you become aware of it. And I think this is how I find that management and leadership becomes more something that you craft over time. And I don't think it's something you can just turn on.
Yeah. I feel the same. Although I think I feel that I don't know because I didn't do an MBA, and maybe you have a different perspective on that. But I feel that you can learn how to be a designer. You can learn to be an engineer at school. You can learn to be an accountant. There's no real curriculum to become a leader, um, and uh, and I don't know what I mean. It looks like the Navy have as a very good school for that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I don't know much, and I would like to interview someone from the Navy eventually. But otherwise, it looks like it's a lot of trial and errors and a lot of you know you create your craft over time, and you put some experiences under your belt, and how you become better, and that's what you explain. But I wonder whether there's a better way, because there's a cost to that. There's a big cost of letting people going through those experiences and fail, and there's a human cost. That's the most problematic way, because some people are put into leadership position, and I don't believe they are ready, and they can be really bad managers. They can be you know impacting the life of others potentially.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why that's one of my motivations for having this podcast actually, is to create this type of curriculum and learn from people like you who have been through those experiences. Oh, and also, I mean, I know that it won't replace the experience that you have, but at least learning from others. And that's also why I'm having this format, this long format, by the way, is to be
Yeah.
able to understand, to go into the details, so one can really pick up some of the experiences that my guests
Mm-hmm.
have been through, and recognize the situation, and they have some guidance on how to use them.
Mm. I think, like, I feel like one of the person that inspired me the most in this whole management world is obviously Peter Drucker. And then in terms of the school of management and the way he sees it and as it evolves, I see a lot of the same things, in the sense that at the basic, our job in leadership or management is the management of people and resources of management. And so, technically finding a way that people work together into delivering an outcome, which originally was very, as you said, like very army driven, about managing people, lots of similar people doing similar things. So it was a lot more about managing. So
Yeah.
these directing and being very to make things happen. And then, you're in the First World War, Second World War, an industrial race. But then as the industries is changing now, it's more of a knowledge based world, where you can't switch people one for the other quickly. There's
No.
a scarcity of resources, and most people that are working in your team are doing things you can't even do. You're not even to do. Like, if you go back 50 years ago, the manager would technically be able to do everybody's job all the time, because they could replace that person easily. Today, it's not the case.
No.
On the contrary, you want to build a team where people that are more intelligent than you, but also have more better expertise and wide. So we end up having a management situation that is much more about leadership, because you're not managing somebody's task and work, but you're more leading into the direction where you need them to go, because you're leading somebody else, and as a team, and you end up to this overall big orchestra of symphony. But you're not able, you can't play every instrument. It's
No.
impossible.
Yeah.
So you need to move into, and I find that, so you need to have that knowledge of management. So understanding, like, like resources, mixing, and management, and deadlines and objectives and things like that. But then you need to have that emotional intelligence and intuitiveness that will help you become more of a leader, not a manager. I think that is the tricky part that some people have and some people don't have. And I think this is where, when you become good in terms of building teams, you kind of, size really quickly. If somebody's really smart, humanly or intuitively, emotionally intelligent, if we want to say, that is a skill that is very important when you lead, because you don't have the real power. It's almost, and I find sometimes I see my job more as leading like a nonprofit. Like, if you ever been involved in nonprofit, and I've done nonprofit since I'm like 15, I've been involved over and on and off, because I find it's hugely rewarding intellectually, but also spiritually. But it's great experiences too. Sometimes it's a great way to learn something you don't, or be involved in the industry. I used it actually when I was in my 20s to change industry. When I wanted to switch from banking to cosmetics world, obviously, employers, they look at your resume and they're like, you're a banker, I don't need you. You don't know anything about it. Like, why would I hire you? So in the meantime, what I did is I started doing volunteer work for an organization that was sponsored by a big cosmetic giant, and then got involved with them, and then so I could show something that, oh yeah, I did this event that was in cosmetics. So I used it as a springboard to other industries, which often I recommend to people that are trying to change industry. But I find that if you've ever been on that board and leading a board of volunteer, it's really hard, because they don't report to you. They have other jobs. They don't need you. And if you push it too much, they're gone and you're really in trouble. Yeah. So that's the act of management with an intuition and kind of sensitivity, which is much more about leadership, I find. And I think that today's world, this is where we are more and more. I mean, my business, I find this way. I mean, I have to be very careful how, things are done from a leadership perspective.
Yeah, agree. But so, I mean, so I fully agree. And actually, there's what you just described is exactly what I read on a great book from David Marquette. It's called Leadership is Language, where he explained exactly that, the fact that, maybe 50 years ago, or even 20 years ago, we had very much managers who were trained on the work, and they were expert of what they were doing, and they were so good that we were promoting them, and so they can guide others to execute. But now we move to a different world where it's much more about knowledge working, and you need to empower teams to deliver. And yes, indeed, in my team there are many people that I do understand what they do, but I don't have the skills to do what they do, and clearly with their level of expertise, and and that's and to the point that actually this is a career change also when you embrace a leadership role. Mm-hmm. This is a turning point in your career, and that's why I thought, okay, so if it is a change of career, I mean, there should be a curriculum that trains you, that give you the tools to recognize that, what is EQ, and how do you get better at it? I mean, it's obviously you can have some intuition, but is there a way to be trained on EQ, or to become better at it, and to create teams? Because the point that I wanted to make earlier is that I feel that we are going through a lot of trial and errors when we are a leader, and I do believe this has a high cost for the enterprise, mm-hmm. for the company, for on the human side. Also, I mean, leaders are taking a big toll on through those experiences as well. I mean, it can be very nerve-wracking, or even you can go on the burnout. Actually, there was 2 episodes before with Steve Cuss in the UK. He shared his story. He is a part of the game. He is in the gaming industry, so doing video games, and actually he was a manager. he knew how to do everything in his team, and it was very hands-on, and eventually he had a burnout. So for 3 months he was on burnout, and there was churn in his team and so on. And what he tells is that actually, because of that experience, that really difficult experience, he realized that he needed to approach things differently. And this is where he started to learn about things, about empathy, about knowing yourself, about and I wonder. I mean, or my argument is that there is probably a better way of doing things, and to help people, and that's what I'm trying to do through this podcast. Actually, learning from people like you or Steve, who had that bad experience and can tell about it and talk about it and share how he changed things. I do believe there's an opportunity for changing leadership, or the way it's done, and to give those nuggets of wisdom to people, so they don't have to go through the same pains and cause the pains to others as well.
Totally. But I mean, even if, just the amount of topics and knowledge around leadership now is very different. I mean, just from, I mean, just the last few years, I feel like we've already discussed that a lot more. There's a lot more information. So I feel like it's a bit of both. I just think that conceptually there's a lot of things that we can talk about in leadership that can probably be kind of fast forward a lot of the knowledge and the ability to be a good leader. I think that these don't really change that much, but I think that there's a bit of a real life experience, just because on the human side of it, there's so many variables, so many little things, and it's the sensitivity. I think it becomes so much better with time, that there's a bit of time, but I find that is needed. I see that as a young manager, even though you'll read every single management book possible and then you'll be ready. Just when you get to the first time you have to let somebody go, or the first time you have to do this performance review, or the first time you have to this big conflict at work, these things are just it's like having a kid,
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
Parenting. You can read every single book you want to be the best parent. I'm not saying you shouldn't, because you should, but damn, it doesn't get in it as fast as when the thing it's in front of you, and then you have the situation with your kids, and it's like, oh my God, this one. So I feel like there's a bit of that too. It needs to be also done. There's a bit of doing there. It needs to happen.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. I mean, parenting is such a great experience and a moment of realization that what you learn and the practice is different, but you need to practice anyway. And then you realize, oh shit, I read about it. I should have recognized the situation.
Totally.
And still,
totally. We had a couple of challenges in terms of HR last year, where we had to do a restructuring, and then it was not an easy experience. Like these experiences are difficult, especially when it's your own company and you feel like an obligation to keep everybody all the time. And then and even through that, I mean, there's some things that have happened at that moment that I'm like, oh God, how come I did that? This is such a junior mistake. Should have been done better. But I'm like, Jesus, I've been doing it for many years, and I still, because at the moment where these things happen, there are so many variables, and it's just, you can't apply a book. You can't apply a theory. It's not a concept. It's there, but there's elements that are, coming out even more now than before. And I think that what you were saying earlier, the fact that this is such a very strong knowledge base, the fact that we're in a shortage of good people in many circumstances and many functions. The roles and the powers have shifted versus employer to employee in many jobs. And I think these factors are just, they can't lie. So they do have an effect on the situation. And I think this is where I find that, leadership is becoming even more important than it was before, because how do you deal with everybody, all these people? And right now this is the situation. This is, we're going in there even more. And I know for myself in the artistic world, it was already very strongly in that direction, which is why I like that world. I find it a little bit more complex, even because some people are just like so talented. It's crazy. And I guess the challenge is how you get them to work and to
Yeah, that's
deliver the
that's
great work every time. Um, and that fascinates me.
Can you share a little bit more about the HR stuff that you went through?
Sure. So we had to, restructure and then merge a couple of team and let go a couple of people, and it becomes about the communication. How do you know how it's being done? I mean, this situation is always difficult, and that's why every time there's like, especially in the last 6 months to a year, there's been a lot of layoffs in different companies, and it's always, already that this is going to be a difficult time. This is going to be a difficult information. People will be hurt. There's going to be a loss of confidence and trust. And so how do you bring the message to the people that are concerned and people that are around? And what's your presence? How much closeness do you bring to the subject? And how do you deal with every single people or person individually and as a group? And you see it. You just watch the news and check it out and see, like, it's a lots of mistakes are happening, and lots of times they're doing it right or wrong. But in our cases, I think that if I were able to go back, I would do a couple of things differently. Like, I would be probably closer with a few people for the aftermath, to try to stay close, and then to maybe bring more empathy. But then you're in that process, you're almost in a way being told that no, you step back, you let the person and people kind of react to it and be on their own to heal back, because these situations are never easy. I don't think that it can be done in a way that is overly positive, because if that's the case, then that shouldn't have been there in the first place. But so so I find that and it depends on the people, depends on the person. Some people will react in a way, in other ways. So I think that that's why I find these experiences are learning every time.
Yeah, and there's no perfect recipe. I mean, as you said, I mean, everyone is different. They will receive the information differently. So
Totally people
yeah,
react, and you can't control how people react to these things. And sometimes you can do your best job, best thing, but it's just, that's not how it's being seen. And then that's it. This is going to be the official comments that will take out. So I think it's amazing how even after like several years, it still is very difficult, and those are very sensitive issues.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether the comparison is great, but I feel that it's like when you break a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, most of the time it's a one way decision, and the other party was not informed or part of the discussion. It's just okay. I have decided that we will not proceed for those reasons, and it's difficult to go through that as an individual, and the context is different, but the sentiment may be the same. But yeah, it's tough.
Agreed. No, and I find that it's even more difficult today, just because well, I guess it depends on the industry and the company. I know for us, for example, we've been working like so many years in a very strong culture, because we believe in it, and we really
Yeah.
believe of the culture of our company, and then that it attracts very talented people, and they stay because of that. And people are very purposeful driven, and when we ask why they're working for us, they're working for purpose, because all the things we do, from the B Corp to the LGBTQ plus certification to the 4-day week, everything that we do culturally, that these moments become even more difficult, because you're kind of breaking a bit, you're cracking that kind of foundation, although that in the long run, the good thing, because at the end of the day, you don't want to be working somewhere where you're not appreciated or where you can't contribute the way you should. And it's probably because now it's time to go, and everybody here is here for a certain period of time in your journey. We're not, this is not about being together for the rest of our lives. This is spend as much time as we can together and contribute. But it could happen that one day it's a chapter in your life and a chapter in ours, and it's okay. We need to make the most out of it, and then if we're lucky, it's going to last very long.
Yeah.
But that is, even if you know it from and it's going to be, it just takes time to go through it. So it's always a tough few weeks and few months before things heal. And after that, I mean, every single situation I've been involved with, it resolves over time, and it's better for everyone, because at the end of the day, you want, even for a relationship, you don't want to be in a relationship and not be appreciated. So you might as well, you'll have to get out. It's going to hurt and you'll be kicked out, and it's going to be a painful experience. But over time, you'll be with someone or not in a situation where you will be better. So I think it's okay. It's just like in them, those little steps that will happen at the beginning that will break. That's always so sensitive, especially if you're trying to lead and be emotionally intuitive. Like, how can you not be connected and feel the pain and the shock?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the etymology of empathy. It means suffering with others. So being empathetic is really having those feelings, and that's why it's difficult. But I think there are different situations. So I think what you alluded to is not doing around the layoff based on performance. It's more because of economic reasons, right? Which are even more difficult to.
Totally, because then it's about why me.
Yeah.
Is that when this performance is like I understand that I'm, it's not working. Okay, fine. And I can see why, and I can bring it to my individual person. When they're restructuring because of economic situation and it touches, then it's about why me and not my colleague, which, and obviously the person that is concerned, will most likely think it should be somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I think this is where it's harder.
It is. But that's the tough aspect of being a leader.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, but that's it. It comes with it, and that's why I say this. There's things that you like and you don't like about things that are part of it, and this is the hardest part, because the reality is that sometimes you do have to make these choices to make the overall team work better, the environment work better, the sustainability of the company, the ability to navigate through rocky water for a certain period of time. Those are the choices you need to make, but they're not the fun part of it. The management is the hard part of it. And when you're leaning towards leadership and less management, then you need to make sure you continue to inspire and then bring back the culture and, explain a lot of the why. And, it's a lot of communication.
Yeah. I've been working in large companies, and I've been going through rounds of layoff, and I always wonder, when you are in the position where you have, when you are a position of, as a CEO, for example, where a position of power, there's one story that really inspired me, that Simon Sinek has, talk about in his book, Leaders Should Eat Last, or Leaders Eat Last. It was during the crisis in 2008. He's talking about a company. I think they are doing skis in Montana, or another Rocky Mountains region in the US, and they were hit pretty hard by the crisis, and instead of going through a round of layoff, what they agreed is that they would share the pain across the company, and that sounds like a great story, and I'm all for it. But is that realistic? Is that something you considered, for example, as in everyone takes a cut on their salary, or everyone takes their holidays, so there's less on the less money outside on for the balance sheets, and so is that something which can be considered?
It's funny. We did that when COVID hit. We
Okay.
decided everybody to turn off and cut off our salaries by 50%, the manager, and then the employee by 25 or 30% at that time, I think, for 2 months.
Wow.
Until we were supported back. And then since the business actually turned around and went back, we actually ended up paying everybody back the year after as a bonus. So we did that. And then we considered this for this time as well. But this time we felt it was different because there was no time. It was not as, I guess, different mindset too, because COVID was such a specific thing. It felt temporary and there was other thing. But in this case, because, you could almost see where you could reduce the workforce so that it could allow you to go, because the worst thing in this case is you don't want to necessarily lose some of the key people that will help you go through it, right? And if you know that some of these people will need to work twice as hard to get you through the curve, it's very difficult to come in with a cut and pay and then ask them to just help you surpass. So we did not do it that time. It could have been a decision. I don't know if it would have been the right one. But yeah, we've played with this concept a couple of times, but we actually put it in place once. And it was quite successful at the time we did. But it was COVID. So again, it's not a normal time.
Yeah. And how was it received by the teams?
When we did it, it was really well received in the COVID. People felt really great, but at the same time, there was so much discussion about it. It was, he felt it was almost the end of the world. So it was kind of difficult it's very hard to compare with that specific moment. It feels almost like a bubble in itself. But it was a good experience if we, and then, but we didn't feel it was as applicable at this time.
Yeah, no, I can see why. Yeah. And I think the example that Simon Sinek shared is going back to what you said about different type of work. I mean, in this particular example, it's a manufacturing company, so they are workers on lines, and I probably would say that everyone is equal in the sense that they produce stuff and they get the skis out, and as opposed to in your line of work or other parts or other type of businesses, some people are driving critical activities that are really important for the business. So I can see why it would be.
It's balancing that act, kind of like, because if you end up hurting a few people that you need to be able to get the boat back up, then that could be a moment of definition in a sense.
Yeah.
And in a sense, if you feel, no, this is the time where the collective environment is more important and that's what needs to stay, then maybe that's the right choice. But I guess we'll never know if that, was the right choice at the right time. But yeah, I think it's definitely something that you need to consider, because it is something that surprisingly went really well for us.
Yeah. Good. Thank you for sharing that story. It was a bit provocative of me asking those questions, but
it's good.
But it was good. All right, so moving. I mean, I think we get we have a good sense of your journey into leadership. I have one more question. You had many years of experience in the corporate world. How did you took the leap to create your own company? Because that's I think in many ways I see myself as an entrepreneur, and I've always worked very well in a corporate world where I was given the opportunity to be an entrepreneur, and that's what I like the most about Amazon, is that we are really empowered. There is a strong ownership there to drive your business the way probably you want. So that's great. But what was the some of the triggers that you had or the phases that you went through to say, "Oh, it's just time for me to create my business"?
I think that a few things were in play. The first is I felt like my work was becoming less interesting because I was too much in management and less in the work. So I feel like more distance as I end up managing more people, it became very much more political. So I was maybe less excited about my day to day. I was doing a lot of emails from, my boss to his boss to his boss to her boss. And that was waiting on me. And then, sometimes like it's almost like in Paulo Coelho's book, The Alchemist, like, watch the signs. So I was looking for the signs, and then I was given one of my worst manager at that time.
Oh.
It really didn't work, between him and I. So at that point, I came to a point where I said, okay, well, either it's me or my boss, because I'm not interested. So I went to the company and I said, this is not working. I'm going to try, but I don't think it's working. There's no fit. It's just too touch of different personal values. And the company did not want to do anything at that point. And they were like, you hold it off. You can do it. Just stuff it up. Over time, it's going to go. And I wasn't able to. I became really, really, really sad about my work and not motivated. And I ended up taking a leave of absence, and it kind of helped me just detach from it. So, it was a very, and in clear sight now, I'm thankful that all this happened, because I needed probably that to get out, because I would have been stuck there for another 20 years. But I kind of wanted it to get out, and waiting for the right moment and waiting for the opportunity. And then somehow, sometimes you call things in the world, and I was giving the opportunity to just, exit.
Yeah, that's good. Oh, yeah. Okay. So, I think when you have an exit like this, it's sometimes a good forcing function.
Yeah, no, exactly. You need, and you take also, I think one person told me, you make the most of every situation in this context, even if you have like the worst possible manager managing you. It's like, learn everything you don't like about a manager, so that you don't do it later on with anybody. So that's the one thing. But yeah, I guess after a while, I need a little kick to get out. Sometimes you need a little thing, but it's a tough one. It's because the reality is the feeling is there. You want to, or I wanted to already. I just didn't have the guts to do it, because then you become very comfortable. And I know, many of my friends in corporate world are, after a while, that you get to that pivot to the other side of, okay, well, I've stayed long enough now. I can't leave anymore. I'm going to wait for the package, and then be like, retirement is coming. And I didn't want to be in that position. I felt like I could still jump and do my own thing. Mm-hmm. But that was kind of the moment that made a decision for me.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about the creation of your company, and specifically, I'd like to understand if you had a very strong opinion from the get-go on the type of structure that you wanted to create, like following B Corp and LGBTQ plus certification. Was it the environment that you wanted to create based on your experience or based on your beliefs, or is that something that you created over time? So what was your journey?
I guess both Ludwig and I met, and then we both are very have shared the same kind of values personally and family wise and culture wise, and the employees, and so for us it was very important to kind of create a culture and environment that represented us. And I was part of that feel of many years being in an organization that sometimes I felt that it wasn't my culture, that these values were not mine. And I felt, the day I do my own, I'll do it the way I think is the right. And I think this is the opportunity of every entrepreneur is you build a company as a little image of yourself in a sense. And then this is your opportunity to do better. So everything you didn't like about before, just like make it better. So in my book, it was very clear that people had to be up higher on the scale versus product and numbers and business. So I wanted to bring back the power and the people on the top. So quickly when we started, I think our first original PR statement when we opened the company was like, it's people first. Like, it was really, we were really eager on getting the best, because, and it kind of makes sense because obviously we were working on talent and creative people. So we wanted to get the best talent, but okay, we need to make sure they work well together. So we need to create an environment that is easy and that makes collaborative work great. So it was very clear for us since the get-go, like the first time. And then as we start growing, I came into Yvon Chouinard's book on Patagonia, and he kind of really struck a chord with me when he was like saying that, you want to change the world, you build a company.
Yeah.
And in his book, his mindset, and then really got me, says, the company is the perfect engine of change. And I agree with that, because I can only do so much by myself as an individual. As a couple, like, we can do so much, or a family. But when you have all of your employees with you and you're about 100 people, you can make things change. You can really affect change. And I think this I found was so powerful in a sense. And then, and that kind of like lit up a bit the light. And then I guess also one of the things that really made us think about it is the nature of our business is not, it's not a very positive change in the world. Like, I'm not working on a new medicine. I'm not bringing a new way of taking care of, food for babies. We're doing advertising. So we're helping this whole capital world going faster, which, most sometimes is not a good thing. So we're not necessarily, our work by itself is not that social, and that positive for the world. And we feel it. Sometimes I feel it. So sometimes we're like, oh, am I spending the right amount of time on what I should be doing? Maybe we should be working on something and make the world better. So we would struggle with these things, Ludwig and I, since so we're like, well, if we don't, obviously we do this job very well, and we have a lot of talent in this, and we attract great people, and they do great work. We're able to make a living out of it and build a little community, and everybody lives and they have families, and we contribute to this community, so it's all good. But the nature of our work sometimes is not the best. So what can we do? And then we were like, well, maybe the first step is to make sure that whatever we build in terms of company is like the best it can be, and that itself could be an engine of change. And this is what got us on the path of, okay, what could we do better? How can we make this company better? How can we make this company a better actor in the community? How can we push the values of employees and sustainability? And so all of these things further. And this is where I connected a lot with the Patagonia's vision, and obviously B Corp at that time. And that was like 2014, I think, maybe 4 years down. And I started researching it, and then found out that, I could try to apply it. And even if I didn't get into it, I could still use the canvas of, the 4 pillars and the 5 pillars. And that's what I did. So I start, bringing that story in, and says to the team, says, what, this would be a great tool for management. It's not just about accounting. It's not about sales and profit only. And it's about so many more things. How do we get involved in the community? Like, what's our actual carbon footprint? Like, all these things are discussed in the B Corp certification. And that's how we got into the journey. And it became by itself a thing by itself. It became bigger than us in a sense. And the employees get really excited about it. And then they took on ownership in it. And we had our first certification. And we just got recertified this year. I'm sorry. And we got a big progress. We got better and everything. So we're really excited, and we work really hard on getting better. So it became a good model of corporate, I guess, compass. I see it almost as a compass,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's our journey into this. And then everything else moved in that direction. Then you start asking yourself, okay, what could I do more in terms of employee benefit? Well, why don't we work 5 days? Could we change our work week? Oh, I see lots of things happening on 4-day week in the world. Let's start. So you start asking and getting better. We launched a foundation called Tux Karma in 2019, which is funded by our nonprofit. Our profit, we have a portion of them that go indirectly into the nonprofit. We finance ideas and projects for creative that are in a mission to help people in our community. So I think it's, I think that the vision of making this company the best citizen as possible was exciting enough for us to compensate for the fact that, the day-to-day work is, we work on computers, and, whatever we do is kind of intangible. It doesn't really exist. And tomorrow, if I wasn't, like I said, and we're not finding the next, cancer treatment. So, so that kind of helped us work with it.
Okay. Have impact and find purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the values that you have in the company? How did you define them also?
I think I'm not a big values on the wall type of guy that, everybody says they're like teams and respect and collaboration. I think that really, if I listen carefully to our employees and the way that our working is being created, I think that our values are based as we're extremely human and empathic. So we really care for each other and care for the treatment of people, the talent, the way that people are paid, they're remunerated, credited. So all of these things are very important for us, with the respecting the craft of everybody in that sense. I think we have a very strong mind there. We have we all want to innovate very much. Like, we're all the type of creative that likes new things and reinvent things and try to make it different and better and disrupt. So I think we are all in that kind of energy. So we get excited on new things and new formats and new medium and mixing things. So I think this is interesting. And I was going to say the third one is all of us have a very strong progressive mindset. So that everybody in our company are always trying to get better and develop, be exposed to something else. So we really value the fact that we mix, like, designers with 3D artists, and we'll mix the media people with production art. Like that, we believe in that mix of art, and we think the work is better. We're not. You have in creative services, you have some people that are really very specialized and go very, very deep in one function, and that's going to be the thing that they're being asked for.
Yeah.
But they're having a hard time working with other people, like, in a sense. So we're really not going there. I think there's a value for it, for sure. But we believe there's more value in getting a few of excellent, talented people working together and delivering an overall stronger product, we feel. So that is the people we attract. People that are open to other things. It's not just about their craft. Even though they're a designer, they'll kind of be interested in a video editor or CGI person or somebody in production or somebody in media. And it's not everybody that's interested in that. A lot of people are very focused on their own craft.
Yeah. So how do you get that done? I mean, I think you have two questions there. The first question is, what does your interview process look like to attract those people and to make sure that you are getting those people? And I think the second question is how do you make those people work together? Because it's not easy to have people with different background or different craft, as you said, connected enough so they work together.
I find that, first, in the recruiting process, we've a lot of people involved.
Okay.
Creatively, there's a lot more than one opinion in terms of the quality of the work and the quality of the skills. So that's being assessed by several people. That is important. And the second thing is we do look for people that are interested in more than one craft. So even in their portfolio or their personal interest or hobbies or things, those are things you can see when people are actually, they're not thrown off by if you add something completely different in their creative process. If their creative process is open enough that it could be influenced by other types of craft. And that is something that we checked right at the beginning. And if they don't, and we've met like superstars that are amazing in one thing, but they can't work with anybody else because they're like, crazy people or like intense people to the point that they don't really, but there are, like, if you look at artists, I mean, how many artists are like, pretty crazy. So it's not necessarily because you're extremely talented that you can work with others. On the contrary, I find in, a lot of the great artists or can only play by themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we do look for that right at the beginning, and then we understand this person will not work well in our environment.
But how do
They,
you do that? How do you
I guess
assess?
you assess it in interviews and discussions, see their work, see how much they collaborated, how much they've been influenced with other things, how much of their loneliness are they, like, are they able to play with others, in the sense that if you look at projects, how these projects emanate, where the ideas are coming from, how they're testing things. And so there's a few different elements that we'll, check out and discuss and see. And then, we have a very, very quick 3 months, first, we tested on a few projects right away to see if that collaborative angle happens. If it's not, then quickly we'll make a call. Because you're right, sometimes it's hard to measure at the beginning, but for sure for us it's not possible. Like, we don't recruit superstar, we recruit like stars of groups, like people that work together. And that's, it's okay, because we're not huge, so we don't need to recruit like hundreds and hundreds of people. We just need like a dozen people every year, so we can find
those people. Okay, good. And how do you make them work together? What are some of the secret sauce that you are that you know of that help make people work together?
I think it starts with showing the example. I think that in our culture we demonstrate that a lot. Like we rarely use the word I in our company language. Like, nobody speaks in the I, and I never, like, it's just, we are this, we do this. It's very collective in the way we speak. So those kind of values in the language, that we would present things, that they would take care of people in their presentations in terms of credit and teams, it's very natural and intuitive. So we ensure that this is there to demonstrate and to show the example, so people really see it, and when they get here they can feel it. So that's important in terms of having I think it's unwritten rule of culture. So that's important. And the second thing is we usually work on the creative process, and our flow is very important, where people are really involved at different times and different moments, in groups and in people with their partners and other people in the team. So we're not going to leave people by themselves, and so we tend to work our creative process around these moments of blitz and share, and so we have them work together.
Okay. And do you ask your people to come to the office, or is it something that can work remotely?
We have a hybrid situation. I would say we recommend people to come to the office. I mean, we're lucky. We have an office in Montreal, our main one. In the US, people work from home, but in Montreal, where most people are, the hub, we have our own building with our wine bar and a restaurant, a coffee shop. Like, it's a real fun environment. So it's not like you're going to work on a tower, like in a cubicle. So It's very different. It has a big social element to it. There's happy hours every 3 weeks, or really, to the top. And so there's a lot of activity that creates that social, because we believe in the social life at work.
Mm-hmm.
But we do accept a couple of days a week at work. We don't expect everybody to come every day. So we have kind of made a kind of a hybrid situation, I would say.
But do you see a difference in the creativeness of your team when they work apart or when they work on site?
I think there are parts in the creative process where you need to be together, but it doesn't have to be all the time. So
Okay.
I think that what this creates is more work from the manager perspective, because to be able to recognize when is a good time to everybody together, and then when is a good time people go work by themselves. So I think this is the key, is once you start really, and it's all about the creative process for us. So we've been updating, really modifying, and like every month in the last year, our creative process, to make sure that we kind of figure out everything, every step of it. We've changed our tools. We're now working on different kind of online environments, so people can all work on the same thing. So we've kind of adapted our workflow to allow for it. But there are some specific time where people need to be together in teams, so they can hash down blitz and then get through like some of the ideas. But then they'll be working on their own for a couple of days. So I think it's fine. It depends on the function too. Some people have more individual work and some other people need to be around more people when they do their work, because, for example, in production, I mean, these are teams that needs to work with different people. It's very hard to work by yourself all the time, but when you do your budgeting and your planning, and you can definitely do that from home to the office. So yeah.
But is it codified? Is it codified? I mean, you seem to you alluded to the fact that you have a very descriptive flow of work. So have you codified when or the steps that are the most efficient in-house versus remote?
Yeah, so it's not perfect. I was going to say I hate that concept is really difficult sometimes, because you feel like you have the solution, but we don't really have it. And I feel like I think we've played with it a lot and we're pretty comfortable with the situation, but I don't think we have the solution for everyone. We're very project-based and client-based, based on, so for example, a campaign that will be 3 months. We have already in our mindsets schedules and work moments where we want everybody to be together. So they'll be working sessions at the end. The rest, they can be flexible when they want. So we've kind of codified within each project as project-based. And then overall, there's moments that are, there's some days in a month or so where we will have information being given at work, and there'll be like more, and people will be kind of invited to be there together more. So those happens as well. So overall, that if you mix all of this together, people are in the office approximately a couple of days a week usually.
Okay.
Which is about half of our time, because we're 4-day week. So it'd be 2 days out of the 4 days. So half of our time would be on site, and half of the time would be at home.
Perfect segue into the the 4-day week. I mean, how does it work? I mean, how do you implement that? Because I can see that in France we have example like. Are you in touch with Laurent de la Clergerie, for example? Who is a big. Laurent de la Clergerie is a big proponent of that setup of the 4-day week. He's the CEO of a very well-known, e-shopping for tech stuff, ldlc.com. And I've heard him several times on different podcasts and also interviews. So he's very pushy for that. So I understand his arguments, but what about yours? What are the benefits that you are seeing? What are the constraints that you are facing? How does it work with customers? Are they expecting that you only work 4 days a week, or?
Yeah. So I guess when we first start talking about the concept of 4-day week, again, since we're in creativity, we're in creative work. So creative work is not time linear reflection. So it is very different. And obviously, if you read a lot of the books on the ideas and ideation and bunch of great writers and music songwriter and everything, it's not about the amount of hours you put in. It's about the, how connected you are with the actual product, which could be just your idea in the shower in the morning or your morning run, or so these moments. So it became very clear to us that the quality of the ideas and the quality of the work is not in line with the number of hours you put in. Therefore, if you put 30 hours, you get an output. If you put 40, you don't get, that much more. And if you put 50 hours, you start declining on the quality. If you actually work 100 hours in a week, you'll have some pretty shitty work. So you start realizing that relationship is not kind of linear and correlated in the way that we actually would like to, or that an accountant would like to. Therefore, you start questioning yourself, okay, what's the right amount of hours to work, and what are the right conditions to have the good ideas, and do we have, enough time to think and to be relaxed? And then, our employees are a lot between 25 and 35 years old to 40. So we have a lot of young families too. So young adults, professional that, like us in the weekends have zero time because they take care of the kids. So and then they're connected on their phone all the time, and people are like, so what's your where is your time to really like calm down and make room, and where is your I forget the name of your neuro center in the brain that is idle, that works when you're doing some mundane work. That time is very important. That's where a lot of the ideas come in. That's why they say shower or gardening or painting or doing some sports. These things are where you recharge your neurons in your brain and function. So we were really kind of interested in the fact that how can we make this better so that the quality of work comes up, and then the number of hours working and the ability to disconnect was becoming very important. And then start reading a lot more about the 40-week concept, and a couple of ideas and a couple of things I've seen on the books, and then some of them examples were very interesting, and I saw some fail and some success, and try to see, okay, well, what are the conditions for success? Like, what are the cases? And then some of the books that I read had some good examples of companies that try some things that didn't work and some companies that try something that worked. There was just not a lot of experience or a lot of examples in professional services like our industry.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the challenges, because our industry, people tend to think like accountants or lawyers, that everybody works on a billable rate and billable hours. So you need to work as many hours. And if I cut down your week by 10, then I just reduce my revenues. And right. So the natural first idea that comes to you is like, no, this is a bad idea. But then when you start thinking, it's like, well, I work 40 hours, but is every one of my 40 hours as productive or on the same level of productivity? No. Do every single hours count the same way? No. Okay, so out of the 40 hours, is there a few hours that are actually pretty useless and I should probably do something else to recharge to get? Yes, so there's a kind of a function there. So we were like starting to be open to the ideas, and we had a lot of people do that too now, but we introduced like the half day Fridays in 2012, I think, or something, to let people go on Friday afternoon, because summers are short in Montreal and Canada. So it was a summer thing, and it started in May and finished in October. It eventually was like, oh, we could do all year. It's like, anyways, Friday afternoon, people are done, right?
Okay.
And we're like, okay, well, then the step between half day Fridays to 0 Fridays, it's not that big. It's what, 4 hours, 5 hours? Like, it's not a big thing. So could we find 3-4 hours that are not productive in our schedule and kind of get rid of them? And it became quickly something that maybe was kind of possible. So I gather a team internally, and then we kind of had a task in mind. So, okay, well, if we had to redefine our work week, what it would be like. And in the book, there was example of people taking half day, like off Monday. Some people on Wednesday have different days. And quickly it became clear that it needed to be on Friday because it was the least productive day anyways. A lot of people on Fridays were like, tired from the Thursday night drinks, and, anyways, their work was not that great anyways. Our clients were not that available on Friday. There's no meeting on Fridays. So it became very clear that day was the day that was going to go. And then we decided to go on the same day for everybody, because we have a lot of teamwork. So if one person is not there, then it stops the other one. So we need to have the same schedule. So we decided to do a little list of everything we think that's going to happen, or we call the condition to success. So what are the things that should happen or need to happen if we want this to be successful? Obviously, our clients need to be okay with it. So we had to check with our clients and say, okay, but to my surprise, but not that much, it is the thing that the clients didn't really care. Because at the end of the day, clients are not buying hours for us. They're buying an idea, the concept.
That was the question I was going to ask him. So it's not billable. It's the outcome based.
Exactly. We're project based outcome. We're not a retainer on hours. We're actually on project and project based. And we need to deliver work for a certain number of time and these things. So our clients don't really care how many hours we put in on a Friday, as long as we get the work done on time at delivery, and that's our role. So that was very easy.
So how do you get? I mean, you got no questions from customers about your ability to deliver on time, because effectively you are reducing 20% by 20% the workforce or the work hours. So you are still able to deliver on time. You have no. So for how long have you been running this? When did you implement it?
Uh,
4 days.
a year now.
A year now.
Over
Wow.
over a year. Yeah, we started in May last year.
Okay. And do you have any data to share? I mean, is the
So
productivity going up or
our
I mean,
productivity has gone up, but it was a. I think it's not an it's a complicated year because there's been a lot of fluctuation in the business. So but
sure.
overall, if I look at or right now, our productivity rate is better now than it was last year. Our billing rate is higher right now than last year. The satisfaction of our employees is as good, similar. Our employee or our clients, same thing. We measure our the word of mouth for our clients, the referral, the NPS, NPR. They're all good, same as last year. We didn't lose anything there. We haven't lost any business. On the contrary, we've gained business, but I don't think we gained business for 4 days because it's mostly a talent thing. I don't think it's a client thing.
Yeah.
But our retention is super strong. Obviously, this helps in recruitment because there's very little agencies in the world that do 4 day, and especially there's like maybe four in Canada. So that's it. So that's a good thing. We haven't been able to do it as much in the US because we have a smaller team, and it's not so it's kind of smaller. When we have a bigger team here in LA, it's going to be a bit more interesting to do it, and then that's going to be a bit more novelty because in the US, I think it's even less present.
Yeah.
But overall, it's a new. I mean, it's not present a lot. Let's put it this way. Even in Canada, like nowhere. So even today, we're some of the first ones to do it, and it's not a project. We've been doing it for years. We've learned many things. We've changed a couple of things already. Because everything changed. The number of days off you have a week changes. That when you have a holiday on the Monday, do you work on the Friday? Like there's a bunch of things that we've gone through the learning already, and we've adapted to it.
So do you? So if you have the 4th of July or the equivalent in Canada.
So we work on the Friday that week.
Okay.
Because I mean, technically, when you give the Friday off every week, you're giving 52 Fridays, right? So 50 Friday, that's a lot. So if we say like out of these 4 weeks where there's a Monday off, you work Friday, people are fine. Like you're still
Okay.
overall very, very better off. But we try because, and that happened by mistake, is the first holiday was September last year after we decided to be on the 4 day schedule, and it was Labor Day, and then that week, so the Monday was off, and then Friday was off. So then we had 3 day, and we're like, and then people scramble, and then obviously we're flexible.
Okay.
We have production on a Saturday. Sometimes we'll shoot on a Saturday. It's not because and we'll take time later on. So people are very flexible. If we have a big campaign that is launching on the Friday, we'll be working on Friday. We're just going to take a day off the week after. So people were already in the mindset that we're very flexible because the nature of work is flexible. So we realized that week everybody worked on the Friday. So it's like, oh damn, okay, well, let's make it a rule from now on. If Monday is off, we work Friday. So that it's always 4 days week, depending, always 4 days, because that's the minimum we can do our work in.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then to your point, like it's not as bad as you think, because like I said, if you consider that half, I don't think a lot of people in the creative services work on Friday afternoon. So let's say you only work 4 hours on a Friday. You're literally only reducing 4 hours of your 40-hour week. So that's 10%. If you consider how many stupid things you do in a week, like filling a timesheet, like we got rid of timesheets. That's 1 hour for everybody, because that was like at least an hour for everybody. So that's one. We've tried to combine a few meetings and reduce meeting time from 60 minutes to 45 minutes, everybody. We tried to meetings are the one that is the hardest thing to fix, but that has a lot of different solutions you try. So that's what we're working on. We've done a couple of things already in at work, but I think it's a progress. I think that one of the challenging thing we have is right now is to find deep work time in the creative world, like where you have protected 2 hours or 3 hours with no interruption. Because even though there's no office now, with Teams and Slack and everything, there's more distraction than ever. So we're trying to find a way to make sure that people are not interrupted for a specific number of hours every week. And then that we haven't really been able to craft yet. So we have a big working session in August where we're going to try to figure a solution.
Oh, I will follow with that.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting, but it's and then there's a lot of literature on it right now. It's like especially like when you get into your flow, and then in creative work, if you're working on a design or working on a concept, or like, you need to get to that flow phase, and it takes about 30 minutes to get in normally. And if you're interrupted, you go back in the third. So if you're
Yes.
interrupted a couple of times in the morning, you basically have never gone to the flow. And I think it's a big problem for in our world, because that's the output that we create. So I need to protect the team. So anyway, so right now we're testing to see if we can find some time where we actually block time for people. But yeah, it's a challenge for sure. But the pluses are crazy. People are excited. People they never want to go back. For people that are young families like myself and half of my staff, Fridays is a real day for them, because the kids are at school and they're alone. They're free. So people do tennis, they go play, they go surf, they did classes and stuff. And it was really the biggest learning for us, is that we didn't realize, but for young parents, it's phenomenal.
Oh yeah,
it's a real day. So
you can
anyway,
have a lunch with your partner. That's great.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Last Friday, I went to the beach at lunch. And it was like, oh my god, like I feel on vacation.
That's good. And no pay cut, right?
No.
Equal base. Okay, cool.
No.
That's great. I think in my world it's very similar. I mean, we talk also about the flow, being in the flow for developers. It's very important to remain in that flow and being in that state. So there's a great book about team topologies. How big are your teams basically? When you have a project, so how big is the team?
It depends. Some teams will go like 8, 10, 12 people. Some teams will be like 4, 5, 6. It will depend on the projects.
Yeah, because in this book, Team Topologies, what I found super interesting is the fact that they want to limit it, or they recognize that we should limit the size of the teams to limit the interruptions and making sure that the flow is respected. So it's all about the flow and having stream-aligned teams, so that they are all aligned to the same stream, and so there's no dependency or stronger dependencies over each other, and so whenever you are in your flow, you can go and execute on it.
I agree. No, it's super important. It's hard to, and then even now I find it's even more difficult because we have 2 time difference. So from the Pacific and then the East Coast, so that also squeezes the schedule of everybody. So if you are trying to work with someone and have meetings, that you have actually very little time together, and I think that creates another layer of problems for us in terms of having team working remotely or with teams that are different time zone. But that's the challenge, right? That's what the challenge is. We need to figure it out.
That's good. All right, thank you for sharing that story. I think we are heading towards the end of the episode. So before we leave, I mean, I wanted to understand how do you keep learning and growing as a leader? What are some of the things that you do?
I think I need to stay curious. I'm naturally very curious, so I will pick up books, that I'm half gonna read, but I don't care. It's not gonna stop me, and I'm okay with it. But at least I'll get into it a little bit. So I think staying curious is very important, especially in everything that's human based, because it's so much so fast. So I think it's it's very important for that angle, and I think that as people grow and become more senior around me, it's to learn the ability to start to let go more and learn to detach, which is probably one of the hardest thing I find so far. And luckily for me, we made the move to Los Angeles last year for spearing up our office in California. Therefore, we kind of disconnected ourselves from the main office and all my teams. And it is extremely difficult, and I find it really hard because, I'm a people's person, and to see the people and share ideas, and it's so important. But on the good side, it kind of disconnected us from the busy life as well, of everyday work. So it kind of opened up the ability to just stay remote a little bit and kind of not being involved in everything because I can't, because I'm too far. And that has some positive sides to it. So I guess this is the thing, the journey for the next few years for me is to learn to detach and focus on things that are the most important that I should be doing. But as a small business, I think it's been like that since day one. Like at the beginning, the first 2-3 people we had, all the functions, every time you add more person, you try to take some function from me, and then
Yeah.
you focus on that. And then you separate your role in two and you focus on that. And as you grow, it changes all the time. And it's kind of nice. That's how it evolves over time. And I think the important thing is to make sure that whatever you keep, you love. Because that's the worst part, is if you start giving away everything you like, then you're going to hate your job. And for me, my experience in the corporate world was a bit of that, because in the corporate world, they tend to give you responsibility based on what they need, right?
Yeah.
And then it can happen after a while that you're like, oh my God, I hate my job. What am I doing? This is not what I wanted to do. I wanted to keep doing this. And it's very hard to say no in these organizations because it's not seen as good.
Yeah.
So when it's your own business, it's even more important to say, okay, well, now I can't do all of this anymore. I need to let go of something. Okay, what do I want to keep? I think it's, for me, is always the number one thing I ask. So I make a point of making an effort there. So I think the next few years is, again, that is going to be okay. What part do I let go now? But it's important.
Perfect. All right. Do you have a book to recommend, or something that you found very good, like a podcast, video, training?
I haven't. I I read recently Death by Meetings, and I thought it was really good. And I have also read. I'm gonna get. If you've read if you ever read the Five Dysfunction of a
Function
Team,
of a
for me
team.
this
Yeah.
is one of my favorite, and I go back to it every couple of years, and I rewrote it,
Yeah.
reread it recently because it was just like too good, And sometimes I'm the type of person who will assimilate over time, and I need to read the same thing at least 3 times,
Same.
and oh yeah, so then I'll be like, oh, very nice. And recently I read Peter, Robin Barker, the implementing value pricing, which was very nice. It's very service oriented,
Oh yeah.
service, professional
Okay.
service. It's
That's just a
how to price services based on the value, not on the time, not on the cost. And I think this is, to me, very important in terms of bringing our profession up and and build. But yeah,
yeah,
it's
specifically in creativity. I mean, all those years can help you get to the 1 hour that you are delivering the stuff, because that's
totally.
the difficult part to explain to. I mean, like developers. I mean, all those hours or years of coding stuff. How to code stuff now very quickly, and maybe you can do it in 1 hour, but it would be stupid of you to make it only a 1 hour billable work.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's the same thing, is like, it's not based on what's in there. Like, it's based on the value. I mean, the bottle of water you're buying at the Walmart versus that you're buying at the Disney park is the same input. It's just
Yeah.
like the value of it, because it's taken in a different place. And if I were to give you that bottle after one day not drinking in a desert, it'd probably be worth like $100.
Yeah.
So the value of something is not based on input, but it's based on what it gives. And I think this is very important for us. And I think our industry got into this pattern of calculating salary based on hours with a markup, and it's not really, and that's their revenues. And therefore you're stuck with just having more people or working harder. Whereas if you do things that are more meaningful, maybe you'll be able to get, higher prices for your services. But yeah, that's so value price has been like an important part of me. And then Dead by Meeting, it's Patrick Lencioni, same as so he's a bunch of like great books of Dysfunction of Team, and
Yes.
and this one is actually very fun and surprising. And he always, I like him because he always tells book content by little personal stories, and that's easy to digest.
Okay. I need to read that. Thank you. Are you hiring at the moment? Do you have any open
Yes, we
positions?
are. I think,
Okay.
we are. We are a couple actually roles open.
So our candidate should apply.
on our website,
Yeah.
www.tux.co. There's a employee job section, and all the positions are there.
Okay, cool. I may have someone to recommend in LA actually, if she wants
Cool.
Mimi.
Totally.
She's probably working for one of your competitors. I mean, she's in the advertising company already.
Okay.
So
Oh, good. Awesome. Yeah, for sure. Please send them my way.
Yeah, I will. And the last question that I usually ask is, what other leaders should I interview next? Who do you recommend, or who could you introduce me to?
Wow. Who should I introduce you to? It's a good question. Huh. I would refer you to Dax de Silva, probably, or let me find out. I'm gonna find out somebody for you.
All right, sounds good. Sounds good. Thanks so much, Dominic. I think it's time to wrap up. We have our kids to pick up at school. At least I have my kid to pick up at the summer camp. So I need to rush.
Have a good pickup then, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Dominic. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You stayed until the end. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Paid Forward Society. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and share it with at least 2 people who would benefit from this discussion. Your support helps me reach more people and make a greater impact. You can also help me get discovered by leaving a 5-star rating and a review on your favorite podcast platform. I appreciate your support and look forward to continuing this journey with you. Bye.